All right. How's it, guys? I'm Rowan, and this is Louis. Our third team member, Tsakane, couldn't be here today as much as she would have loved to because her visa didn't come through on time, unfortunately. But we're from AllSafe, and we've been looking at the community policing environment in Cape Town, South Africa. This idea came about a year ago, March 2016. There were two major incidents that took place in the space of a week. It was the rape and murder of two teenage girls. Francisca Blokliger from Takai, which is a wealthy area in Cape Town, and Sinokolo Mafevuka, a girl from Khayelitsha, which is a low-income area. And we looked at that and we thought to ourselves, there has to be some sort of solution to this. Why are two teenage girls faced with the situation? Why has this happened, really? So in the space of a week, we came up with an idea. It was a device that could alert police when a person was in danger, and we dove straight in. Which is exactly the opposite of what we should have been doing. We crowdfunded the idea, but after coming off that, we realized that we hadn't properly understood the problem landscape and what existed, really. So in August last year, we decided to take a step back. We went and started speaking to police stations, neighborhood watch groups. We spoke to community members, policing forums, and we had a whole bunch of meetings with a number of different people. We even went on neighborhood watch patrols and sat in police cars. Weirdly enough, the chief of Cape Town Police is now on a WhatsApp group with us and refers to us weirdly as her sons. So we've been in the environment for a while, and from that we've been able to pick up three key areas in this problem landscape that we've unpacked. The first is contact crime, which is the core of the issue. Contact crime includes murders, rapes, and assaults. Cape Town is the 14th worst city in the world, the third worst in South Africa. And at the bottom here, those stats are from a perception of crime survey. A lot of people feel unsafe in the environment in Cape Town. A lot of people are subject, they have to protect themselves. Underlying this are drug issues. A lot of people believe that this is the result of drugs, and Francisca Blokliger was actually killed by two people who were high on crystal meth at the time. And this has been backed up by two of the police officers we met with in Mitchell's Plain. So contact crime is the core of the problem at the moment. But coupled with this is the allocation of police resources in Cape Town. So this is a map of Cape Town at the moment. Pink dots represent white individuals. Orange dots represent Indian and colored individuals, and blue dots represent black individuals. I know we're in the Nelson Mandela Theatre, but this is a 2011 picture of what the environment still looks like today. This is the low-income region here, where all of the black and colored folk are, and all of the white individuals live in those areas there. And on top of that, the majority of murders and assaults take place in the low-income areas. But despite that, there are approximately 960 police officers per 100,000 people in the high-income areas, but only 111 officers per 100,000 people in the low-income areas. So there are 9 times more police officers where it's safer. And the third element of this was reactive policing. Now that's your 911, that's your emergency calls, and the South African police report a stat of 18 minutes as the average response time. Except there's 2 problems with that. 1, they only start counting when the police car finds out about the situation. And 2, they exclude any data after 30 minutes. So if it takes longer than 30 minutes, they just ignore it from the stats. They call it a marginal performance level. But what we've actually done is we've picked up a Stats SA survey, and it found that 60% of South Africans Cape Townians feel that police take at least longer than 30 minutes to respond to a problem. So the problem landscape was far deeper than we expected, and looking into the solutions was what became far more important. Handing over to Louis to look at that.
Thank you, Rowan. So to understand where these problems actually fit into the solution space, I'm going to walk you through the different organizations that form part of the safety landscape in the Cape Town area. So we can broadly define these into 3 categories. First would be our government organizations. That can be subdivided again into your national government up there and your local government down here. So an important thing to note here is the most important impactor of safety is the South African Police Services, which takes its policy decisions from the national government level, which is quite slow to react. And as you can see, the local government actually picks up quite a lot of slack with a couple of different initiatives that it tries to support the resources put in by the South African police. So our next sector is our community. So the way the community actually expresses this as a solution is through neighborhood watches. So we actually met with a man who runs the neighborhood watch in an area next to ours, and his name was Frank Schutermarker, a very strange man. Here's a picture of Rowan out on a patrol with him. So basically, he showed us an example on his phone of 100 different WhatsApp groups, which have organically formed in these neighborhood watches to help them communicate issues on the proactive policing side. Yes. And then let's get back to the community policing forum, which is actually supposed to be the most important part of this side of the landscape. The community policing forum is the only formal platform where the National Police Service actually gets together with the local government and the community to discuss structural issues that actually impede the safety in communities. We've actually attended a couple of these, and actually what's happened is it's devolved into basically 45 minutes of the police reading 3-month-old crime stats to the community, and then the community asking for more funds for 15 minutes. But if you understand where the police funding actually comes from, a local police captain has no way of increasing that allocation. So it's basically a dysfunctional platform at the moment. Our third category is the third party or private solutions, and these can be grouped into 2 different sectors. One are private security firms. So there's about 4 or 5 companies that you can actually outsource your security to. By that I mean it's basically a police force of its own. You outsource your safety from your home safety all the way to emergency response using crime apps that they've developed. They've actually got quite a good model, and they've pioneered a decent way, but it's very expensive and a solution for the rich few. Then the crime apps, where we initially would have plonked our solution. A lot of crime apps out there at the moment will actually allow you to just alert family and friends. If you think about that, it's actually the community using a crime app to alert the community. And we actually drew this up, and we looked and said, we are not even playing in the real game over here of all of the resources that are being spent. And that's when we took a step back. So, what did we learn? Where are we going with this? So, through our analysis, we actually believe that the system's performance as a whole is very sensitive to improvements in the performance of the South African police. If you think about it, they actually form the backbone of the entire system. All of these organizations down here, the Metro Police, Community Improvement District, Neighborhood Watches, all rely on the police at the end of the day to do the heavy lifting, basically. Neighborhood Watch can do the legwork, but they have to inform the police when they actually find something that needs solving. So, what are the low-hanging fruit that we would like to target moving forward? Internal efficiency of the police is very poor. Like many organizations in the 21st century, they are struggling to implement technological changes that would eradicate a lot of unnecessary work internally. But more importantly, and in line with our research, is getting the police to take a stance on integration in the local space. So an example of this is we found quite a few different communities that had managed to forge personal connections with policemen in police stations, and not necessarily the police in general. And through this, they actually ended up being able to almost eradicate crime in their neighborhoods. An example is Mr. Frank Schutermarker, the strange man. He actually generates these reports out of the 100 WhatsApp groups that he audits, and actually makes it every single week and gives it to the police captain. And through the act of giving this to the police captain, has actually built rapport with the police and is able to, on a neighborhood watch, directly call somebody at the police station who has the ability to send resources at will, basically. And through this, they've actually launched quite a lot of change. Thank you. I'd like to hand over to Rowan to summarize.
Okay, so our summary is going to be quite quick. We've got a minute left. But our lessons from this are threefold. We want to improve communication between various stakeholders. We want information sharing between them to happen on a much more improved level, such as what Frank's doing, but nationally. And we want to integrate the different resources in the environment. This would help with 3 intermediate outcomes: better decision-making by the police, enhanced allocation of resources, and improved response times to emergency situations like what was the case with Francisca and Sinotolo. Ultimately, we hope this would affect a reduction in crime. Going forward, we'd like to meet with stakeholders at the higher levels, with police officers and the Minister of Police to discuss our research and find ways of implementing this on a systemic level. Thank you for your time. We hope to keep South Africa all safe.
Over to our judges.
Hello, is this working? So I'm curious in the steps you might take in ensuring that any intervention that you make doesn't simply amplify that discrepancy between 960 and 111.
So first of all, part of what we'd like to do is get that resource allocation right. These police stations operate on a very individual basis, so there's no room for overlap. So Camps Bay receives formal funding, then Nyanga or Khayelitsha. And so being able to integrate and say, you don't have to keep a sort of bunch of police cars in an area. If there is a better way to allocate it with the right information, you can say, okay, these guys can head over here. We don't have enough people in this sector, in this area for this response. The problem we risk with that is that if we make it a purely technological advancement, if it's a device that's run through a smartphone, we risk losing out on the people that can't access that. But interestingly enough, through a bunch of other research, 70% of people in low-income areas in South Africa have smartphones. It's their primary way of access and communication. So we do have to be careful with our allocation. We don't want to design a solution that is just for the 1%, a device that costs a couple of $100 or anything. That's why we're trying to make it systemic at a government level with the most resources that are available and direct them properly.
I have one more question. For the backbone that you mentioned, in terms of it being the South African police, what's preventing them from making these changes? Is it just the information flow, or is there any other barriers? Because, you know, it sounds like they're the most systemic core of it.
So from speaking to the policemen, they actually, it's actually quite a strange thing. Speaking at the police station level, everybody just defers upwards. They just continually say, this is not something I can even talk to you about. Like, there's nothing I can say that will help you. So from the ground, which is why one of our levers is to actually go up the ladder and try and lobby and understand if there are any issues that are stopping what we see as obvious from our research. Interestingly enough, like those rich connections into police stations, we actually found many different cases where policemen on their own had sought out third-party solutions and were communicating with the community on an investigative side as well. We actually found one platform that, to fund itself, did restaurant reviews and police incident reporting. So I mean, it's as far as we can tell, a policy thing. And
just to add to that, those police officers are actually acting against policy. And the policy comes from a national level. And South Africa, like, there's a lot of issues going on. There's education funding, there's poverty, and there's a whole bunch, like a range of things. So police funding actually hasn't increased that much over the last while because it's been directed into education, healthcare, and poverty initiatives. So they might be aware of some of these issues, but finding the solutions, that's where like the partnerships comes in. That's why we can't necessarily say, oh, the police must just do it. That's where I think we can affect the systems change, and hopefully we can.
Thank you.
Okay.